Hello and welcome. He proved himself to be the fastest man on ice in the 1990s when he won a handful of gold, silver and bronze Olympic medals. But he found a greater calling in helping poor children discover sports in places like Africa. This week on One, meet world-beating speed skater and activist Johann Olav Koss. He's been described as one of the greatest winter athletes of all time, something Johann Olav Koss proved as he dominated the sport of speed skating for almost a decade, breaking a total of 11 world records. Few have collected as many medals as Koss, including the 3 golds he got in 1994 at the Lillehammer Winter Olympic Games. Trained as a medical doctor, he went on to pursue his passion for sports, in particular skating, which he had started from the age of 7. It was as an ambassador for Olympic Aid that he visited Eritrea in the run-up to the Lillehammer Games and was moved by the poverty and plight of the country's children. He reorganized Olympic Aid as Right to Play and focused on his work as its head and as a UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador. His passion for the charity dominates most of his time now, and Johann Olav Koss continues to prove that he's genuinely driven by the need to give children in impoverished nations a better future. Johann, it's great to talk with you.
And great to be here.
And it's great. I see you at so many events, World Economic Forum, UN events. I see you at the Global Creative Leadership Summit. And you're very, very active in pushing this agenda of building stronger communities through sports. Now, what is the driving force? I mean, what is it that pushes you so much in this field of work?
Well, I find it's incredible that we're looking at particularly children and youth development, and that we're not utilizing probably the best cost-effective tool, which is play and sport. For their development, and we need to kind of advocate for it and bring it forward into this type of communities, and trying to create a social value, like a new kind of constitution, or probably a way to look at how we can create social value, because we are so rich now in our world. We know we have opportunities, and there's defining the value of the future and the 21st century. How can we actually look at this and making sure that children are growing up with joy and happiness and proper and prosperity, and we can reduce conflict and improve health.
When you say sports is not a luxury, what do you mean?
It is absolutely not a luxury. I mean that people see it as a luxury potentially. That's something you can do ad hoc or an additional to. But actually looking at the physical development of a child, their psychological development, or even the social development, you see sport is a critical element for all of these 3 components for their proper development. Even within education now, it's proven through research that their academic performance improves by having physical activity and sport included to the school programs.
Now, interestingly enough, you're the kind of person who goes out there, you're active in the field, you get your hands dirty, you go and you play ball with the kids and everything. What evidence have you seen firsthand of the success of Right to Play?
Well, we have seen evidence of health and improvement of health. We've seen improvement of education and attendance to school. Within the health areas, we're finding fantastic results on behavior changes of prevention, for instance, of HIV/AIDS, or area for malaria and TB, or even the simplest things as washing hands and diarrheas and transmissible diseases. In conflict areas, Right to Play have seen both inside conflict time, where the war in Lebanon, where we're seeing activation of psychosocial trauma counseling of children is incredibly effective when you manage to activate them and normalize the situation. We see them in peace and reconciliation educational programs, where we can have CD programs. So in all these areas, and of course with the community involvement, having women and gender involvement, this is extremely important, and we see success in all these factors.
Now, I know from experience, Scandinavian people, particularly Norwegians, are very active when it comes to philanthropy and social activism and doing something good out there in the world. Is it something you were aware of from an early age?
I was brought up in a family which really had a concept of giving back, I will say, because obviously my both parents selected to be medical doctors. Though they did beyond their own medical practice, they also brought patients home. There was always openness to these things, and they were always willing to give an extra hand. And of course that stimulated me as a child, seeing how much they were caring for others, that this is a really important aspect and value of our family life. And I think my grandmother probably was a great advocate and a spirit for me in my life, particularly because she was always there for me. But when she was always told, you know, the golden rule of you should do to others as others you want others to do to yourself. But she talked a lot about the world and how children growing up in other parts of the world outside Norway did not have the same access or opportunities as I was given, and that we had a responsibility to create equalization.
What are those earliest memories you have of your childhood in Norway?
Oh, they are absolutely incredible, fantastic. Like I was 7 years old and I wanted speed skates for Christmas. You know, my parents gave it to me. And
why that interest in speed skating at that age?
I think it's such a big sport and popularity in Norway. And I actually I didn't know at the time, but I saw later, I saw pictures of my parents and my family watching speed skating on television. So with that type of attention, I probably wanted similar attention from them as well. But it's a very popular sport, and I got it when I got on the ice. I love the sport. And when I was skating as a 7, I was more on the snow than I was on the ice. But there was one guy pulling me out of the snow, and he was like the coach for all the kids. And he was like doing the kids learning the skate school, and I got part of that. He became my role model and my mentor, and he was my coach from I was 7 to I finished in the Olympics in '94.
It's funny, I read, ironically, that, you know, when they said you were really enthusiastic, you were so passionate about the sport, but you didn't show a lot of promise at that age.
That's true. I was probably a horrible talent. It was not at all. I didn't get to be talent before I kind of developed and developed late when I was 16, 17 years old, though I had fun and I always had the encouragement of others to come on. And actually, that's one of my fond memories when I was a child. Was I went to my grandmother after watching Eric Heiden winning the world championship in Oslo in '79, the year before he won 5 gold medals in Lake Placid. So that summer after he won the world championship, I said to my grandmother, you know, I really want to be a world champion, Olympic champion like Eric Heiden. And she told me, you can do whatever you want. You just have to eat well.
Fantastic.
So, but you know, having somebody believing in me and believing in the dreams you have, it's so extremely important, because if you have been allowed to do that, you will actually be able to set yourself goals, and you don't really worry about all the things you have to do to reach it, but you actually will having the ability to improve and work towards certain of your dreams.
Now, you said your parents were fairly passionate about sports. They used to love to watch this. And were they there on the sidelines for you, always cheering, always pushing you on?
Actually, I think I had a fabulous parents in this area, because they always were supportive, but they weren't pushy. And it's a big difference between that. And that also meant that, you know, they weren't always there either, which is not a bad thing. It's actually a very good thing. They were there when they wanted to be and when they had time, though I had to kind of figure out how to get to the stadium with the training, coordinating these times and different things. So, though they were always in support, and I had to say sometimes when I hadn't trained for a week, my mother felt that my attitude was so bad that she sent me out training, but that was more of her own benefit to have a nicer kid at home, I think.
Now, of course, Canada's your adopted home, and you're in the US a lot. So when you look at how pushy parents are with kids here, they're trying to train them from such an early age. When you regard it compared with the experience you had, how do you regard that you know, push to make kids super athletes from an early age in places like America?
Well, I would say that this happens all around the world. So I wouldn't single out the Americas, and I think I feel sorry for the parents, because their ambitions it's driving the children's ambitions, and I don't think it's going to be very successful. The ambition has to come from within the child, and they want to perform to be able to do it. If not, even if they perform based on their parents' ambition, they won't be happy about it, because they will in the end say, well, are you happy now? I finally won, and they're not really doing it for themselves. And I don't think they're going to be successful. There's few examples to show that they have managed success, but it's so many more examples when you don't push your child, but you support them in development. There are many more winners. So it's actually, if you have ambitions on your child's performance, don't push them. be supportive. And that's an interesting opposite feeling for them.
Ironically, you and I share your same background, medical background. You went on, you actually are Dr. Johann Olav Koss. And then you went on to study business, an MBA in business. And what made you take that change in direction? I mean, medicine was a part of your family. It was what you studied.
Yeah,
you went towards business.
I finished, actually. I had an exceptional opportunity to go to medical school both in Oslo and in Australia, and I finally qualified in Queensland University, and I had a great experience there, though I needed to make a decision, actually, because I wanted to create this international organization, Right to Play, and I needed full attention to it. Either it had to be going to medicine or it will have to build this organization, and at the time I'd choose the organization. And after 2 or 3 years of starting up this, I realized that I needed some more managerial and business experience, and I had a wonderful opportunity at the University of Toronto at the Rotman Business School to take this course and to really understand the financial accounting, business procedure, strategy, marketing, because as running an international NGO today, it's like running a business. We are a multinational operation. We have operation in now close to 30 countries, where 23 countries is running programs and 7 countries we are raising funds. So it's so much similarities, and you really need to know these things to be able to be a successful manager.
Does your medical experience still play a part in what you do now?
Very much so. My medical background is driving both the programming, the research, which I would like to do much more of, and of course our whole public health initiatives which we're doing within our organization, which is in the prevention of health or is mobilization of health issues or in those type of areas. So I'm very, very fortunate having the sports side, the medical side, and the business side, to combining this within an organization where we are utilizing all of those aspects to be successful.
Well, Johann, don't go away. We're going to take a short break here. We're back with more with Johann Olav Koss in just a moment.